This is Chairwoman Jane Lichter. I call to order the meeting of the Board of Education of Baltimore County for Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. This evening's Board of Education meeting is being broadcast through the BCPS online live meeting broadcast and on BCPS-TV, Comcast Xfinity Channel 1073, and Verizon Fios Channel 34. In order to efficiently conduct this meeting, all voting items this evening will be done by roll call vote. May I have a motion to go into the closed session as permitted by the Open Meetings Act as found in the Annotated Code of Maryland, General Provisions, Article 3-305, B1, B7, and B8 to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals, consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation.
So moved. Stileski.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Dominowski.
Thank you. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Henn,
Yes.
Ms. Frempong, Ms. Harvey,
Yes.
Ms. Agembe,
Yes.
Ms. Stileski,
Yes.
Dr. Savoy,
Yes.
Mr. McMillian,
Yes.
Ms. Pumphrey, Mr. Young,
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski,
Yes.
Ms. Lichter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. This is Chairwoman Jane Lichter. I now call to order the meeting of the Board of Education of Baltimore County for Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. I invite you to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag to be led by Ms. Forsyth Ongambe. We will then have a moment of silence in recognition of those who have served education in Baltimore County. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tonight's Board of Education meeting is being broadcast through the BCPS online live meeting broadcast and on BCPS-TV, Xfinity Channel 1073, and Verizon Fios Channel 34. In order to efficiently conduct this meeting, all voting items this evening will be done by roll call vote. The first item on the agenda is the consideration of the January 13th agenda. Are there any additions or changes to tonight's agenda? Mr. Young?
Yes, Ms. Lichter. I move to add contract RBE-802-26 Edgemere Elementary School deed of easement to the agenda as item L24.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Stileski.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Henn,
Yes.
Ms. Harvey,
Yes.
Ms. Ogumbe,
Yes.
Ms. Stileski,
Yes.
Dr. Savoy,
Yes.
Mr. McMillian,
Yes.
Ms. Pumphrey,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski,
Yes.
Ms. Lichter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The revised agenda is approved, and the agenda stands as now presented. Earlier this evening, the board met in closed session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act for the following reasons: to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals, consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. The closed session summary and the open session information summary can be found on board docs under the board meeting agenda date. The next item on the agenda is personnel matters, and for that I call on Mr. McCall. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Lichter, Vice Chair Harvey, Superintendent Dr. Rogers, and members of the board. I'd like the board's consent for the following personnel matters. Tonight we have retirements, resignations, leaves, and educator licensure appointments.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel matters as presented in Exhibits D1 through D4?
So move Young.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second, Harvey.
Thank you. Any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Henn,
Yes.
Ms. Harvey,
Yes.
Ms. Ogumbe,
Yes.
Ms. Stileski,
Yes.
Dr. Savoy,
Yes.
Mr. McMillian,
Yes.
Ms. Pumphrey,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski,
Yes.
Ms. Lichter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is public comment. This is one of the opportunities the board provides to hear the views and receive the advice of community members. If not selected to address the board, members of the public may submit their comments to the board members via email at boe@bcps.org. The Baltimore County Police Department's Homeland Security Unit and Office of School Safety has recommended safety and security protocols, which are posted in the boardroom and available in board docs and on the board's participation by the public website. While we encourage public input on policy, programs, and practices within the purview of this board and this school system, this is not the proper forum to address specific student or employee matters or to comment on matters that do not relate to public education in Baltimore County. Inappropriate personal remarks or other behavior such as language that promotes violence against a BCPS employee or that disrupts or interferes with the conduct of this meeting are out of order and will not be tolerated. Persons who otherwise disrupt or disturb this meeting will not be allowed to continue their remarks and will be escorted from the meeting. Please observe the 3-minute clock, which will let you know when your time is up. The microphone will be turned off at the end of your time or prior to the time at the discretion of the board chair. At this time, we will start with school system affiliated groups, and our speaker is Ms. Leslie Weber from our PTA Council of Baltimore, and I believe she is virtual. Ms. Weber?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Lichter, Vice Chair Harvey, Board of Education members, and Dr. Rogers. I'm Leslie Weber, President of the PTA Council of Baltimore County. A County Council public hearing featuring testimony on ICE and 2 bills to support and protect our immigrant and mixed status community is taking place tonight. The chair of our Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, Edwin Perez, who often testifies before the Board of Education, registered to speak on behalf of PTA Council. Bill 9725 would establish the Office of Immigrant Affairs and a permanent Chief of Immigrant Affairs. Bill 9825, the Trust Act, would ensure that county employees and police focus on public safety rather than civil immigration status. National PTA recognizes that the separation of children from their families or the looming threat of it creates toxic stress and trauma that cause lifelong harm to a child's brain development. Many of us are aware that a number of BCPS parents fear sending their children to school, which is a tragedy. These bills are about dignity, safety, and equity. They ensure that Baltimore County is a place where every student, regardless of their family status, can reach their full potential. National PTA's position, Rights and Services for Children in Immigrant and Mixed Status Families, asserts that all children have the right to a quality education, adequate food, and health care. National PTA recently shared important Know Your Rights resources with members. These resources from the National Immigration Law Center and Center for Law and Social Policy explain the rights of parents and caregivers who are being apprehended and detained. Resources from the Immigrant Family Mental Health Advocacy Program at the Institute for Juvenile Research detail how families can talk to their children about what's happening with immigration enforcement. As noted in the National PTA information shared with members, National PTA urges everyone to take action to support policies that support a safe and supportive school environment for all families and students, including students in immigrant and mixed status families. We're happy to share National PTA's position and resources with anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Our next category are our unions, and our first speaker is Mr. Billy Burke from CASE, who is also virtual.
Good evening, Chair Mrs. Lichter, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Rogers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on behalf of CASE. I want to begin by acknowledging the shared gravity of this moment. We are under no illusions regarding the fiscal climate facing our county. We recognize that the budget before you requires making the impossible choices that define leadership. CASE has always sought to be a partner in these difficult conversations. In fact, just last year, our members stood in solidarity with the system by signing a memorandum of understanding to delay pay increases until January. We did that with one goal in mind: to protect the positions and livelihoods of our CASE members and to prevent the very cuts we are discussing tonight. However, as we look at the FY27 cost-saving budget, we must be honest about the human cost of these efficiencies. The proposal to reduce 524.6 positions, including over 324 due to staffing formula changes, 40 assistant principal positions, and 36 central office positions, reaches deep into the heart of our school communities. While these are presented as fiscal adjustments, they will be felt as service adjustments by the most important clients we serve, our students. When these cuts take effect, the environment changes. Fewer staff members will be available for the critical supervision of students at the car lines and in the hallways during arrival and dismissal. We must also acknowledge that 36 central office positions being cut represent a loss of the vital expert backbone of our district. These individuals provide the specialized curriculum support, legal compliance, and operational logistics that allow our school-based administrators to focus on their buildings. Some CASE members were called to HR meetings today. I can only assume the reassignments have begun. When central office is thinned, the administrative burden inevitably shifts back to our principals and APs. Reducing 40 assistant principals places an immense burden on the remaining administrators who are already working at capacity to ensure safety and instructional excellence. Beyond the logistics, our administrators will spend the coming months as the primary support system for teachers and staff entering the priority transfer process. To mitigate the instability of this causes, CASE is making a formal request to the board tonight. As assistant principals and central office CASE members are reassigned due to these cuts, we request that no new hires, either internal or external, be made until every single impacted CASE member has been placed in either a promotional or lateral position. We must prioritize the talent and dedication of those already serving BCPS before looking elsewhere. We acknowledge that the cuts are unavoidable. However, we advocate tonight for the members of CASE who will bear the brunt of these reductions. We proved last year through our MOU that we are willing to sacrifice to save jobs. Thank you for your time and your partnership.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Our next speaker for unions is Ms. Kelly Olds from TABCO. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Lichter, Vice Chair Harvey, Dr. Rogers, and members of the board for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to acknowledge and appreciate that the budget presented yesterday includes the funding for the third year of our bilateral wage agreement. I particularly appreciate treating our bilateral wage agreements as fixed costs. We agreed to a 3-year contract so we could spend time focusing efforts on initiatives that advance students, educators, and schools away from the bargain. And that is where we turn our attention now. These cuts are too deep. We are concerned they will be detrimental to the gains our educators have helped win with our students. We must work together to curb their scope, size, and impact. The reason I say we are concerned about these cuts instead of something more definitive is because we also call for additional transparency around these cuts. To have the public discussion about cuts and losses, the public needs to know fully what is planned. The more the public, including our county leaders at the courthouse in Towson, understand what could be lost, the more we can together work to increase county funding to reduce the potential harms that would fall upon our students. In my 22 years at Lansdowne High School, we had years with large cuts, painful cuts to our faculty. The years after those cuts, morale was impacted, students lost access to the adults and resources they needed, class sizes grew to sometimes unmanageable numbers, which brought all the negative results of students having less access to caring adults working with them. Sorry, I have to turn the page. Got stuck. It limited educators to work in small groups. It limited educators' ability to work in small groups with learners and reduced the individual attention that can be the true catalyst for learning. I've also seen when former students come back to the school to see a beloved educator that it is particularly heartbreaking when they find out that they have been transferred because of cuts. It reduces community continuity and works against the gains in cultures at a school. All of this is to say, the work now is to reduce the size of these cuts. I've said it here before, I've said it to any of you that I've met with, and I will say it again now. Let's work together, transparently, with our cards on the table, to call for more than 2% over maintenance of effort. At the budget release event yesterday, Dr. Rogers talked about the loss of over 2,000 students from our system. We share the concern with student loss and firmly believe that we must maintain resources in our schools to continue to make Baltimore County Public Schools the best place to educate children in this county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next category are nonprofit community groups, and our first speaker is Marietta English from the Baltimore County NAACP. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Chair Lichter, Vice Chair Harvey, board members, and Superintendent Rogers. My name is Marietta English, and I'm Chair of AXO and the Education Committee for the Baltimore County branch of the NAACP. The Baltimore County branch of the NAACP represents the entire county, and our membership is far and wide. And I'm happy to be back after suffering from a fall and the flu, if you notice I haven't been here. So I'm happy to be here to speak with you today. I would like to commend Dr. Rogers and the staff of BCPS on having high schools in the top 50 in the state, including Pikesville, where my granddaughter attends and will be graduating in May. And this is a great accomplishment for Baltimore County Public Schools. I would like to commend Dr. Rogers and the board on the presentation of the budget yesterday. The accomplishments of Baltimore County are outstanding. You have managed to do a lot with a little bit. I was happy to see that the labor agreements will be met. This is huge in the current environment. I know it was difficult, but your inclusions of all the stakeholders as you develop this budget is to be commended. I also said on some of the committees as we discussed what our budget priorities would be. We don't always get what we want. However, we have essentials that will help us as we move forward. We will be supporting you in Annapolis as we fight for more funding for our schools. We want to continue the growth of our students. What you have accomplished with just a little is amazing. I want to again thank you for your support of AXO. I am sure that our students in AXO who participate are enriched by their experiences in the schools and help us move forward. I look forward to working with you, Superintendent Rogers, and the board as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jacob Girding from the Maryland Association of School Librarians and also virtual. Mr. Girding.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Rogers. My name is Jacob Girding. I am the president-elect as well as the advocacy chair for the Maryland Association of School Librarians. MASL's mission is to ensure every Maryland student has equitable access to a high-quality school library program. While being teachers of record for up to 2 classes a day is less than ideal, we appreciate that BCPS has worked to retain secondary library positions in this budget. The blueprint for Maryland's future requires a total transformation of our secondary schools to ensure college and career readiness. A central strategy in the BCPS Blueprint Implementation Plan is the integration of project-based learning. PBL cannot succeed in a vacuum. It requires an instructional engine, a specialist who can collaborate across departments to teach students how to construct meaning from complex research. A secondary librarian is that engine. When a librarian is a teacher of record, you shut down the PBL hub for an entire school building during those hours. We recognize in this moment the immense staffing pressures facing BCPS. We understand that in a fiscal crisis, scheduling a librarian to teach 2 classes a day is a necessary compromise. However, MASL must be clear, this is not an ideal solution, and going forward, it should not become a long-term strategy. By making librarians teachers of record, you add the administrative weight of grading, testing, and conferences to a specialist who is already tasked with managing a school-wide digital collection and maintaining compliance with the Freedom to Read Act. MASL urges the board to commit to a sunset for this strategy and to protect the flexible scheduling that makes secondary libraries work. Do not allow a premier district to create library deserts in our middle and high schools. Let's ensure that the Blueprint for Maryland's future remains a plan for student excellence with flexibly scheduled librarians and programs led by certified librarians that have proven records for improving student achievement. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next category are individual citizens or students, and our first speaker is Sharon Serhoff. Good evening.
Good evening. I hope you can hear me with this on, because I don't want to spread what I have. I'm Sharon Serloff, and I am a special education advocate that's been working with this county for over 20 years. And I saw a headline this morning that greatly concerned me about increasing class size to 25 students per teacher. I deal with teachers and administrators and the Department of Special Ed on a daily basis. And one of the things that comes up a lot is class size. Came up this morning at a meeting where a concerned parent was saying, well, what do I do? I have my child in a class of 26 kids, and she's in kindergarten. 26 kids in a kindergarten class shouldn't be happening. But my other alternative is take her off diploma track, because there isn't a lot of the in-between. We have to find a way to keep students in smaller classes because our teachers are already overburdened. They have fewer resources. And I can tell you how difficult it is to get assistants, aides, paras, whatever you want to call them, into classrooms in Baltimore County when they can make more money in other districts. You can't handle 25 kids in a kindergarten class when you have IEPs for behavior, for developmental disabilities. It's just not a workable situation. And I am getting so many phone calls from parents with younger kids this year that I am literally turning people away. I cannot handle that kind of a caseload. We know our special ed staff has been overburdened for a while. We have fewer speech and language therapists, fewer special ed teachers. We have to find a way to not cut staff and to not increase class size, because the ones that are going to suffer the most are our students. And I'm already seeing it at the lowest grade level. So I think that we should reconsider that class size. Thank you.
Thank you, and we hope you feel better too. Our next speaker is Stacy Nunn. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Chair Lichter, to all board members, and to Dr. Rogers, Superintendent Dr. Rogers. My name is Stacy Nunn. I'm a library media specialist at Southwest Academy who is enthusiastic and proud of this tireless work locally and nationally. This evening, I volunteered to speak for school library media specialists in Baltimore County as a unified voice to affirm the critical instructional role of certified library media specialists and the importance of our position. We've all seen the breakdown of the blueprint for Maryland's future, and we are familiar with COMAR, of course. But tonight, I am pointing out directly to Baltimore County Public Schools Policy 6200. The Board of Education of Baltimore County recognizes that the school library media centers provide equitable access to print and digital resources essential to 21st century learning, teaching and learning. Throughout the district, school librarians uphold this policy daily by sustaining inclusive, resource-rich learning environments that support both students and staff. In alignment with the policy, librarians collaborate and co-teach with classroom teachers to integrate information literacy, research, and technology skills in content area instruction. In addition to these core responsibilities, librarians manage comprehensive library programs that encompass collection development, digital resource management, student access, instructional technology support, and school-wide literacy initiatives. These duties are foundational to student achievement and require specialized training and certification. Collectively, Baltimore County librarians represent a significant instructional workforce. Our strength lies in numbers. It also lies in our shared expertise and the consistent impact of schools across the district. At the same time, the scope of the responsibilities assigned to the librarians has expanded to include the teaching of 2 additional courses outside of our certified content area. As a result, library program data, including instructional reach, collaboration, and access metrics, have been significantly impacted. Despite these measurable effects, school librarians have met this challenge with professionalism, adaptability, and continued commitment to students and schools. We raise these data-informed considerations to advocate for thoughtful alignment between policy, practice, and staffing. While librarians continue to meet the expanded expectations, sustaining high-quality instruction and equitable access at scale requires intentional support. In addition to maintaining our positions, aligning workload, and non-certificate instructional focus, we want to be reassured that Baltimore County School Library continue to deliver meaningful collaboration, robust library programs, and a lasting impact for every student. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Makita Scott, who is virtual. Ms. Scott?
Yes, hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Good evening, Chair Lichter, Vice Chair Harvey, members of the board, and Superintendent Rogers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I am here to follow up on the presentation delivered to the Equity Committee and a letter I sent to the full board regarding the Equity Council's recommendation for the fiscal year 2027 operating budget. These recommendations are grounded in equity-centered solutions that are essential so that Baltimore County Public Schools can create a system where all students thrive. At the time of the presentation, the supporting documentation was not available. It has since been uploaded to Board Docs, and I urge all board members to review it in full. The recommendations reflect the collective work of the Equity Council, community members, parents, and educators whose lived experience and professional expertise inform this process. This was thoughtful, rigorous work rooted in the real needs of our students and families. We look forward to the full board's discussion on how these recommendations can be meaningfully considered as part of the fiscal year 2027 budget. Our expectation is not simply acknowledgement, but transparent communication regarding feasibility, next steps, and timelines. Equity requires follow-through, and we remain committed to working in partnership with the board to advance this work. I would also like to request an update regarding the board's required anti-bias training for board members. Senate Bill 293 requires each local Board of Education member to complete anti-bias training at least once during their term. This requirement took effect on July 1st, 2025. At this time, we are requesting written communication from board leadership outlining when this training will begin and when it will be completed. This is a matter of both compliance and leadership. Finally, I am requesting an update on the policy introduced by Ms. Pumphrey at the PRC committee meeting on April 1st, 2025. Drafted by TABCO and CASA, this policy was intended to provide clear guidance to staff regarding parental consent for the release of information and access to Know Your Rights resources. If the board does not plan to adopt this policy, we request a clear explanation of that decision and information about what policy will be used in its place. Our schools and community really deserve clarity and consistency. So we thank you for your service and your attention to these matters, and we, as the Equity Council, look forward to continued dialogue and concrete action in the interest of equity, transparency, and accountability. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ramona Basillo. Good evening.
Good evening. Good 2026. I would say Happy New Year, but based on everything that we've heard, there's a lot of consternation, there are a lot of legitimate concerns, there are a lot of pain. So I will say good 2026, and we hope that it's a better year for everyone. Many of you know me in my connection with the PTA Council. I come today wearing my other hat, and that's a volunteer coordinator and a member of several national volunteer organizations, including AmeriCorps, a former organization called the Campus Outreach Opportunity League, the Corporate Volunteer Council of United Way. I come in support of policy number 1260 regarding volunteers, and offer some, I don't know if this is the time to do that because I couldn't figure out the agenda, but to offer some suggestions and some feedback on how we can look at volunteers in a new way, especially in light of the current staffing and budget situation. I've lived long enough to know this is not new, what we're going through. And I've lived long enough to know that there's talent, there are volunteers, and for some of my critics, we're not saying have volunteers instead of staff, teachers, and workers. What we're saying is there's a new look that we have to present on volunteers. First, regarding the policy, I would suggest that we include a statement about nonprofits as a part of that. Secondly, the policy as written focuses almost entirely on training. And what I'm suggesting is that we include a statement that recognizes the value of volunteers from a youth volunteer organization perspective. According to the United States Census, volunteerism is rising. 16-year-olds and above are doing a lot of service. 75 million people are volunteering. The majority of it comes from millennials. As we think about volunteerism, let's have a policy, and I would offer that we add a B that will provide recognition for meaningful, structured student youth volunteer programs. And I would also add a thank you, and my C would be to add a recognition component. And I'm using this as a very public opportunity to say thank you, because a couple of years ago, I was selected one of your volunteer champions. I hold that award out often. My grandson says, why? I said, because it reminds me that I'm not finished. So those are my suggestions, and in addition to implementation, it says direct the superintendent to implement the policy. Excuse me, I have respiratory issues. I would say add Rule 1260, because if I'm looking at this at the first time, there are other opportunities for me to get more information.
Thank you. We hope you feel better, too. Our last speaker is Ambash Farone. Good evening.
Good evening. Happy New Year. Happy for accomplishments, I hope. Please read my letter to you. I send by email. It's lengthy. I want to focus on 2 points. I read the good job that the website has portrayed the students. So a few days ago, basically the front page talks about our students and what they accomplished in the year 2025. And it's an interview, if you didn't see it, with about 15 or maybe 20 students. So the first person said what accomplished in year 2025, said learning music. The second student said, I was accepted in college. That's great. The third one said, I got a job. The fourth one said, I passed SAT. The fifth one said, I got rid of bad friends. The sixth one said, I do not know. The seventh one said, finally, I can make money. The eighth one said, finally, I can grow a goatee. The next one said, I got a new car. And the last one, very impressive, I finally made it to the end of the year. So as an observer, it's a good job done by the media department, but it really shows the low bar that is set by the current superintendent and the previous ones. Students portray that their aspirations are low. Nobody said anything about their accomplishment in doing research or accepted in Hopkins or university or research institution or anything like that. You know, it's about making money, it's about goatee, music, etc. And I think if you add that to the small amount of improvement that the superintendent has made, which I talked about, the system is not really set for progress.
Thank you. I know, 3 minutes just flies by. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report, and for that I call on Dr. Rogers.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Lichter, Vice Chair Harvey, and members of the board. At this time, the communications team has provided a preview of the budget presentation. All of you who are familiar with Team BCPS know that we have been engaging in these conversations around the fiscal climate for the last 3 years. And so we're going to take a look back at some of the conversations that we've had in the community, along with what our priorities have been focused on our students. Thank you. Our system's key priorities and investments are all focused on moving BCPS forward. We know that implementation science tells us that it takes about 3 years of investing in an infrastructure, really focusing on professional development and implementation before we start to see student progress move forward. We are fortunate in BCPS that it has not taken 3 years before we have started to see progress in our students. Baltimore County Public Schools has invested in early childhood education, high quality and diverse teachers and leaders, college and career readiness opportunities for students, and more resources to ensure that all of our students are successful. This will be another difficult budget cycle for our school system and other LEAs across the state, with the continued expansion and implementation of the blueprint and probable lower federal, state, and local revenue. For this reason, we will ensure that our communities understand the differences between the operating budget and the capital budget processes, know how our funding is spent and accounted for, and understand how different roles across Team BCPS directly impact the experiences of our students. We have spent the last several months engaging our staff, families, and stakeholders in conversations about the budget and priority areas for our system. It is important to us that our community knows and understands sources of BCPS funding, how funding is spent, and where they can find additional information. As we did with the last 2 budget cycles, we will ensure that we give extra scrutiny to all budget submissions to help identify potential savings that can be redirected to offset potential shortfalls. Over the past 2 fiscal years, BCPS has made more than $168 million in reductions and eliminated hundreds of positions to address budget shortfalls, including 69 supervisory level positions. I will submit a balanced proposed budget to the Board of Education for its review and deliberation. Some key things to note about the proposed budget. It will be aligned to the county target of a 2% increase above what we received in FY26. The proposed budget will include the full Year 3 compensation package for Team BCPS staff, and to ensure that the budget is balanced and meets the county target, it will also include additional reductions. My commitment to you and to all of our employees is unwavering. I want to use this time to speak not only to that commitment, but to reground us in what we are all committed to, which are the 111,000 students that we serve. My commitment to you is that I'm going to respond to our students. I'm going to make sure that everything that we do puts our students first, not only in word, but in deed. Sustaining our forward progress will require continued investment in the priority focus areas that we know are working for our system. These investments will yield positive results, not just for our system, but also for the county and the state.
Next on the agenda is the Chair's Report. And welcome to our first Board of Education meeting of 2026, and Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a restful winter break. Many thanks to TAPCO and ESPBC for organizing their annual legislative breakfast at Summit Park Elementary School this past Saturday. The event gives elected officials and board members an opportunity to hear and discuss the efforts of Team BCPS, focusing on successes as well as areas needing improvement. I appreciate my fellow board members and the many elected officials who dedicated their Saturday morning to attend, listen, and engage in conversation. Thanks as well to TAPCO and ESPBC members who joined us. Your participation and insights are essential as we work together to advance our system. I would also like to express my appreciation for the opportunity I had to visit Woodlawn Middle School last Friday. As we initiate the FY27 budget approval process, it is essential to remain focused on our core purpose, our commitment to improving student outcomes for all BCPS students. Visiting classrooms allowed us to watch and listen to teaching and learning. There was mutual respect among staff and students, notable examples of student leadership, an environment that was both safe and well organized. I'm very proud of the work that is being done at Woodlawn Middle School under Ms. Archelice's leadership. And I realize that we witnessed is not an anomaly, but rather an example of the hard work our school leaders and staff are doing throughout BCPS on behalf of our students. This brings us to our budget. Shortly, Dr. Rogers will present the proposed FY27 budget. I'd like to thank her for assembling our school and system leadership team together yesterday and providing a detailed overview of the proposed budget. Her presentation offered valuable insight into the process and the rationale behind the recommendations. I appreciate her commitment to presenting a balanced budget while prioritizing full funding for our staff's compensation packages. This reflects her ongoing discussions with our county executive, specifically the percentage above maintenance of effort that the county executive has indicated she would support. Achieving this funding priority of full compensation for staff requires careful adjustments in other budgetary areas. The difficult decisions proposed have been informed by staff and community surveys, Dr. Rogers' direct engagement with stakeholders across the county, and a research-driven approach to budgetary reductions. Dr. Rogers, based on all information gathered, is putting forward a balanced budget that reflects substantial input and thoughtful planning in a challenging fiscal time. Though we are just at the start of the approval process, I'd like to thank all those who contributed their feedback and to all of the staff for the hard work that has been accomplished so far. While BCPS has seen notable progress over the past 3 years, more is needed for every student to succeed. It's imperative that our budget decisions keep student achievement at the forefront. Next on our agenda is our student member of the board report.
Good evening, Board Chair Mrs. Lichter, Vice Chair Mrs. Harvey, Superintendent Dr. Rogers, members of the board, staff, families, and BCPS students. The new year has started with momentum and collaboration across Baltimore County Public Schools. One of the most meaningful projects last month has been working with our Office of School Safety to develop a student-centered PSA explaining the I Love You Guys emergency response protocol. Ensuring that every student understands what to do in an emergency is essential, and I'm grateful to be a part of contributing to a resource that will continue to support schools in all of our schools. I've also been working closely with fellow board members to restructure and strengthen our area education advisory councils so they better reflect the needs, identities, and voices of the students and families they serve. Alongside this, I had the opportunity to attend the annual TAPCO and ESPBC legislative breakfast, where I heard directly from educators and legislators about the policies shaping our classrooms. I've also been recently recruiting students for this year's Student Handbook Review Committee to ensure policy decisions remain grounded in student experience. But the highlight of these past few months has undoubtedly been the series of school visits. From conversations with administrators to listening sessions with students, each visit offered something uniquely powerful. I heard about activity buses expanding access to after-school programs. I heard of pizzas with principals, events that help rising sixth graders build early relationships with school leadership. And I even heard about the inspiring learning and earning approach at General John Stricker Middle School, where students are motivated to stay engaged, accountable, and supported. Across the county, principal advisory councils are thriving, and it's encouraging to see students not only included, but uplifted within their school communities. Our Baltimore County Student Councils has been going strong, and we're excited to be hosting the Maryland Association of Student Councils on January 25th at Loch Raven High School for their annual legislative session. This is one of the most important events of the year, where students from across the state come together to debate and pass MASC's official bill stances for the legislative session. As one of MASC's state legislative affairs coordinators, I'm grateful for the opportunity to help facilitate these conversations. During this session, we will also select the finalists for the position of the state student member on the board, an essential step in elevating strong student leadership at the state level. I hope to see many BCPS students present. As we come into the new year, I also wanted to use this as an opportunity to restate and clarify the SMOB's role. The student member serves as a bridge between students and the board, bringing forward student perspectives, highlighting concerns, and ensuring that the lived experiences of young people guide decision-making. The SMOB provides insight that only someone living the day-to-day reality of our schools can offer. In essence, the SMOB ensures that students are not just talked about, but truly heard. Thank you, and Happy New Year to every student, stakeholder, decision maker, and educator who continues to speak up, engage, and contribute to making our school system stronger.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business, the proposed FY 2027 county capital budget, and for that I call on Dr. Grimm. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Lichter, Vice Chair Harvey, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Rogers. Here this evening for the board's vote and hopefully approval on the capital budget request.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the superintendent's proposed FY 2027 county capital budget?
So move, Young.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Hen.
Thank you. Any discussion? Just check teams. Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Hen?
Yes.
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Ms. Ogumbe?
Yes.
Ms. Delusky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Lichter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business, report on board policies. This is the second reader for these policies, and for that I call Ms. Christina Pumphrey, Chair of the Policy Review Committee.
Thank you. Members of the board, the Policy Review Committee asks that the board accept the committee's recommendation to amend the following board policies. Board Policy 1260, School Volunteers. Board Policy 1600, Public Charter Schools. Board Policy 3210, Purchasing Guidelines. These policies are presented to you on tonight's agenda as Exhibits J1 through J3.
Thank you, Ms. Pumphrey. Board members, are there any separations being requested? Okay. Then may I have a motion to accept the recommendations of the board's Policy Review Committee for Board Policies 1260, 1600, and 3210?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a sec? Oh, we don't need that because it comes from the board, from the committee. So may I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Hen?
Yes.
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Ms. Agumbe?
Yes.
Ms. Delusky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Lichter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is action taken in closed session, and for that, I call on Ms. Cavati. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Lichter, Vice Chair Harvey, Dr. Rogers, members of the board. This evening in closed session, you considered and took action in Appeal HEA 26-010. This would be an appropriate time for the board to approve that action.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the action taken in closed session on hearing examiner case HEA 26-010 and authorize Ms. Gover to sign for those board members not physically present?
So moved.
Whoop. So moved, Ms. Delusky. Is there a second?
Second, Dominowski.
Thank you. Any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Hen?
Yes.
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Ms. Agumbe?
Yes.
Ms. Delusky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Pumphrey?
Abstain.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Lichter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is contract. Oh, thank you. The next item on the agenda is contract awards, and for that I call on Mr. Young, Chair of the Building and Contracts Committee.
Members of the board's Building and Contracts Committee met on Monday, January 12, 2026. Items L1 through L24 were forwarded to the full board for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Board members, are there any requests for separations? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve items L1 through L24?
So moved. Stileski.
Thank you. No second is needed since the recommendation comes from the committee. Any discussion? Mr. McMillian.
Yesterday evening, I got cut off during the Building and Contracts Committee. I was actually in a school and the service was terrible, and I got disconnected. On the last contract, on the Spares Point contract for the track replacement, what's the timeline of that, Ms. Lazario? Excuse me?
You need to come to the microphone, Ms. Lazario. I'm sorry. It's okay.
The timeline in this one is similar to the other three that we've already taken. They will be starting in the spring, and it'll be completed over the summer.
So we'll be starting in the spring of '26 here in a couple months.
Yes.
Have you,
And
I'm
we've
assuming.
coordinated with the school and the athletics and everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Hen?
Yes.
Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Ms. Agumbe?
Yes.
Ms. Delusky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Lichter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the report on artificial and turf grass fields. And for that, I call on Dr. Grimm and Mr. Sy. Good timing. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair Lichter, Vice Chair Harvey, Superintendent Dr. Rogers, members of the board. Mr. Sy and I are here this evening to provide a report on artificial and grass turf fields. So our purpose this evening is to share with you our status regarding artificial and grass turf fields, and briefly to share with you, so BCPS and Rec and Parks have collaborated to develop and maintain athletic fields to effectively serve our schools and our communities. And this really started back in 2006. It started for a need based on durability and playability because our fields were being so heavily used. And we were struggling to maintain those natural grass turf fields.
All right, good evening. There's been a lot of discussion nationally regarding synthetic turf fields and natural grass at all levels of sport. I would like to highlight and provide information regarding some of the differences as pertains to, first, heat. As many of you are aware, natural grass surfaces normally don't extend over 100 degrees even in hot weather, whereas your synthetic fields can exceed 150 degrees in hot weather. Fortunately for us, each one of our schools is equipped with a wet bulb globe thermometer that our athletic trainers and athletic directors use, which accurately measures direct sun heat and, coupled with our heat guidelines, prevent us from having kids out in extenuating heat on these surfaces. As it pertains to safety, older turf fields have shown higher rates of foot and ankle injuries, but subsequently, newer turf systems show no difference between the two as it relates into 72% of most studies. Concussions for all competitive sports were lower on synthetic turf fields. However, there has been a few studies among high school football players where there was a rise in concussion rates. This is normally or generally linked to increased turf usage and poor turf maintenance. So if you're not taking care of the field the way it's supposed to, chances are more than likely that you are prone to some more injuries. As it pertains to environmental impacts, synthetic turf fields hinder water infiltration and has disposed challenges with chemical concerns from the crumb rubber infill. Natural grass requires heavy irrigation and chemicals impacting water use and waterway quality despite ecological benefits. BCPS is looking into alternative fillers. I mean, as you guys know, a lot of the conversation is regarding the rubber crumb infill, but we are looking towards plant-based alternatives and cork solutions to alleviate concerns around the ground rubber. Trade-offs and considerations to be considered. Choosing between turf and grass involves balancing safety, sustainability, operational feasibility, and I say that BCPS and Recreation and Parks have benefited from the installation of turf fields across the county. Next slide. BCPS Recreation and Parks collaboration on turf installation at most of our high schools has been a complete success. Currently, there are 7 BCPS high school sites that do not have synthetic turf fields. These schools include Chesapeake, Delaney, Eastern Tech, Lock Raven, Owens Mills, Patapsco, and Western Tech. It is important to note that Eastern Tech and Western Tech both use the community colleges, both Essex and Catonsville community, to host a majority of their athletic games that are on turf fields. Next slide. Status and funding. So where are we at? Here's the status and the funding information as it pertains to the schools who currently do not have turf fields. Chesapeake High School, there is a local bond initiative in place for partial funding of design. They would need additional funding, will be required to complete the design and then for any type of installation of a turf field. Delaney High School, there is a replacement scheduled for a turf field in their new design. So they are scheduled to get a turf field installed with the new design at Delaney High School. Eastern Tech also has a local bond initiative for feasibility planning, services for athletic master plan. Presently, there is conjecture regarding the amount of space that they have on campus and the ability to put that type of field there. Western Tech does not have any field space. They play all their games off campus, hence is why they use the community college. So there's nothing in place for them, and there is no funding at this time regarding the situations at Owens Mills and Lock Raven. So with that, I will turn it back over to Dr. Grimm. Next slide.
So we wanted to share with you our 2 recent standalone artificial turf field projects. Those were at Kenwood and Parkville. This slide shows pictures of the Kenwood turf field and the Parkville turf field. Again, as standalone projects, so just the turf field itself and sometimes some of the additional infrastructure that's a part of that. Kenwood was $1.4 million and Parkville was $1.2 million. Those projects began and were largely completed in 2023. I think they turned into 2024 as well. To give you some idea of artificial turf maintenance, as Mr. Sy referred to, we have 2 different groups working together, collaborating, and we referenced Baltimore County Recreation and Parks earlier. It's really Baltimore County Property Management that assists us with our artificial turf maintenance. And so this slide depicts what BCPS Grounds does on either a daily basis, again, for these stadium artificial fields, and what Baltimore County Property Management does in terms of their maintenance of it. And so when you look at something like applying an antimicrobial or the GMAX testing, the shock attenuation, those are annual things that we coordinate, again, with the county. In terms of our grass turf maintenance, this is what includes the stadium field. So these aren't all the other fields at these school sites. These are specific to those stadium fields and what we do, because these are our grounds, and how we take care of them, again, on a daily, weekly, or as needed basis. To give you a sense of what some of the costs are, for artificial turf, again, we have 17 sites. It costs us approximately $68,000 in total each year, averaging $4,000 per site. This includes our labor and materials only. It doesn't include vehicle, equipment cost, fuel, and any other specialties that have to occur there. And again, that's our cost. That's not the county government cost. Our grass turf sites, the 6 sites that we do have, total about $81,000, averaging $13,500 per site. And again, they include the same type of breakdown. And with that, we thank you, and we open it up for any questions.
Are there any questions from board members? Ms. Domanowski?
Yes. I remember a while back at a Delaney presentation, I spoke to someone from the board of directors at the Maryland State Fairgrounds, and there was some talk or interest in possibly working together to redevelop the infield at the Maryland State Fair track and cooperation with BCPS to use that as, one of our field locations. I mean, the lighting, seating, parking, everything seemed kind of ideal if the cooperation would work. Was there any communications ever made about that?
To my knowledge, we have not been approached by the Maryland State Fair or State Fairgrounds with any type of proposal or anything regarding those fields.
Would it be them that have to approach you, or is it something that we'd have to procure? Or, would be an open community? How would that work exactly?
Like any community member that would like to engage us in something that's their property, they would typically reach out to us and say, are you interested in using our site or interested in partnering with us? Sometimes a local school site, if they have a need to use a particular site, might reach out specifically, but that's not something the school system would normally do.
And you're saying they did not reach out to you?
To my knowledge, no.
Because I think I remember that you were at that meeting with Delaney. It was like in 24 probably, early on, and I remember Kathleen Bedell was there, and she came up. She's on the board there.
To my knowledge, no one has reached out. No one's reached out to me personally about using the fairgrounds site.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions, Ms. Pumphrey?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I requested this be added to the agenda, and unfortunately don't have the correct notebook for my questions, so I'm going to try to recall why I proposed this initially. I know that we had 2 different stakeholder groups come out and speak to us about turf fields versus grass fields. One was the Health and Safety Committee from PTA Council. And their concerns, one of which I believe you addressed, were the having globe thermometers available to test the temperature of the turf fields. So am I correct that you said they were available at every turf field that we have at the moment?
All 24 high schools have them.
Okay, thank you. And what was the other thing? Oh, you mentioned alternative fillers. So is that something we're looking into? Is that something that might be proposed for upcoming fields that are to be built at this point, or replacing fields that are already
It's
turf?
to answer your question, is to looking into the newer fields that will be installed. I'm not quite certain if it's potentially possible, but it is something that we will have a discussion regarding, if that can be changed out in terms of the rubber infill versus the cork or the plant base,
Oh.
But it is looking forward into the future in terms of newer installs.
Okay, thank you.
Our partners at Recreation and Parks are also looking into alternative fills as well.
Okay, awesome. And the other question, I didn't just lose it. Oh, they also mentioned possible, if I'm recalling this correctly, signs posted at the turf field locations to note the safety hazards and what to look out for, the differences between, when you're on a turf field as opposed to a grass field. Is that something we've ever thought about? And again, I'm going without my notes, so to be very specific, I'd have to go back, and I will get back to you with that if you don't recall that conversation.
I don't recall that conversation at all. I
okay.
mean, we have plenty of signage out, and again, would be willing to add any additional signage needed. That really has not been brought to us in terms of posting signage about any risk as it pertains to turf fields.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll find that information from the meeting where they spoke and send that out to you so that you're aware. And if there was anything I forgot, maybe I can ask that question again. I appreciate your presentation.
Mr. McMillian?
Gentlemen, Dr. Graham, has Eastern Tech's feasibility study been finished?
No, I believe it was scheduled to begin in December, and so we would not have the final.
Now, that's the
the
money,
final report
that's
on
the
that.
project that's funded by the legislative.
Yes, sir. That's part of that was part of the legislative bond initiative from 2025 from last year.
And Mr. Sy, out of the 17 schools that currently have the turf, how many of them have had it a second time?
I couldn't give you that number off the top of off the top of my head. I know that Catonsville, the older fields that were part of the original start, Catonsville, Woodlawn, Hereford, there are probably about 2 or 3 other schools. So I'm thinking about 5 or 6 are probably on their second field.
And any schools that have got it a third time?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And is Towson due to get it in their new construction?
I believe so.
Yes, that's one of the first phases of construction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the report on the proposed FY 2027 operating budget request. And for that, I call on Dr. Rogers.
Thank you, Board Chair Lichter, Vice Chair Harvey, members of the board. I'm pleased to present the official fiscal year 2027 proposed operating budget. Before we begin, the communications team has created an introduction video.
Every dollar has a purpose. Each investment strengthens our foundation. A budget is about more than just resources and funding. It's about unlocking potential, creating pathways for success, investing in Team BCPS, fast-forwarding student achievement, working together to engage, empower, and excel. Every dollar counts. Baltimore County Public Schools is deeply committed to ensuring that every student, regardless of background or circumstance, has access to the resources they need to thrive. And we are putting those resources where they matter the most, closest to our students and schools. We've made significant investments in early childhood education, curriculum, special education, recruitment and retention, professional learning, infrastructure, school support, community schools, and safety and climate. And those investments are making a difference. In 2 years, we've made great strides in our efforts to fast forward student achievement. Students are demonstrating improved proficiency in math and language arts. We've achieved significant improvement in higher rated schools. The number of 4-star schools increased by 82%, and 5-star schools rose by 21%. 64 schools improved their Maryland Star ratings. BCPS has 23 5-star schools, the highest number in the state for the second consecutive year. Our operating budget reflects our values, high expectations for students and staff, and commitment to pursuing excellence in all areas of our work. The development of the BCPS budget requires several months of collaborative and deliberate work. Community engagement and input is paramount, and Team BCPS stakeholders are encouraged to engage in the process and provide feedback through surveys, community meetings, advisory and stakeholder groups, principal and central office meetings, board presentations, and more. Your voices played a critical role in the development of the FY27 operating budget. We are aligning resources with priorities, allocating resources in an equitable and transparent manner, and are committed to a balanced budget that moves BCPS forward. Let's stay the course, Team BCPS. Our collective efforts and strategic investments are helping make BCPS a premier system in the state and nation.
Thank you. If we could post the PowerPoint. Almost. All right, so we will begin this evening the same way that I began with the community yesterday. We exist to educate all students. We exist to educate all students at high levels, despite what schools they attend, despite what their needs are. In BCPS, over the last several years, our student demographics have changed. Over the last 5 years, this slide depicts the increase in the number of economically disadvantaged students that we serve, the increase in the number of multilingual learners, our fastest growing population in Team BCPS, and you'll see a slight increase in the number of students receiving special education services in Baltimore County Public Schools. 3 years ago, our charge was very clear. Don't know what's happening with that. Our charge was very clear. Our task was to identify the priorities that were needed in Team BCPS to address the needs of our students. We were to reverse a trajectory of more than a decade of academic decline. We are very pleased that we have been able to use community feedback. We've been able to use examination of our data, as well as review of our procedures and processes to identify 4 priority areas. Those priority areas remain the same. They are academic achievement, infrastructure, making sure that our processes help us to move forward, as well as state-of-the-art facilities for our students, safety and climate, both social, emotional, as well as physical safety and climate, and highly effective teachers, leaders, and staff. While some have criticized our gains as not enough, I am very proud of the progress of Baltimore County Public Schools. One of the things that we want to make sure that the community notes is all of the data that we share publicly are either comparisons to the rest of the state of Maryland, all of the 23 other districts, or the United States of America. In this slide in particular, this references the Maryland report card. This past year, every student group across all levels demonstrated proficiency improvements in both mathematics and language arts. It's also important to note that school quality and student success improve for students at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. In 2 short years, we have had significant improvement in the higher rated schools, specifically 4-star schools. Those have increased in BCPS by 82%, 21% increase in 5-star schools. 64 schools over the last 2 years have improved their Maryland Star ratings. For the 2nd year in a row, we have the highest number of 5-star schools in the state of Maryland. Okay, I'm going to have to say next slide, as this is not working. Thank you. This slide depicts the Maryland Report Card star ratings, as I've shared before. Across all 24 districts, the Maryland State Department of Education ranked all schools, and 9 out of the top 10 elementary schools in the entire state of Maryland are in Baltimore County Public Schools, and 2 of the top 5 high schools are in Baltimore County Public Schools as well. Next slide, please. This slide shows our year 1 and our year 2 results. In a variety of areas, all of these areas on this slide are external. They are validity and reliability tested. The data point that we point to the most, that we work on together collaboratively at the central office level as well as in the school level 3 years, day in and day out, is chronic absenteeism. We believe that no matter what we have available for our students, what resources, what supports, none of it will mean anything and will have an impact on them unless they are in school. As a direct result of our collaborative efforts, Baltimore County Public Schools had the highest percent improvement in the state of Maryland, and over 2 years, we have more than 9,000 students who now come to school on a regular basis who were not attending school prior to that. There are a variety of other data points here, including the state assessment results, our improvements there, the WIDA assessment for multilingual learners, teacher retention, as well as graduation rate and MISA. Next slide, please. It's also important for us to share with our community that when BCPS had the opportunity to receive more funds, we invested all of those funds directly in our students. The research is clear about what it takes to reverse a trajectory of academic decline. There must be an intentional investment in the school system. In BCPS, since FY25, we have invested intentionally in early childhood, adding more than 2,000 full-day pre-K seats. Curriculum, making sure that now all of our students have literacy curriculum from kindergarten through grade 12 that is evidence-based, where we are teaching the science of reading. And the same is true for English language development. We have had a community schools expansion where now we have 110 of our schools that provide wraparound supports for our students and families. We've implemented a differentiated school support model. This was to ensure that all schools have different needs and that we were providing support to our schools that were designated as highest needs, our comprehensive school improvement and targeted school improvement schools, where they received shoulder-to-shoulder support inside of the classroom, inside of the leadership teams to help advance the progress of our students. Professional learning has been a focus for us, not only for schools, but also for central offices and all of operations to make sure that everyone has access to the most up-to-date strategies to do their best work on behalf of the students that we serve. You'll also note on this slide recruitment, retention, increasing investments in special education, safety enhancements to also include additional mental health supports for our students, and infrastructure. Our enterprise resource planning project, as well as 11 major construction projects, have been completed since FY25. Next slide, please. One back. Specific to how we have responded to the needs, we have added additional positions to serve our schools. On this slide, you'll see the list of positions that went directly into schools to support our students and their targeted needs. Everything from IEP facilitators at the elementary level to educator retention teachers to additional counselors, charter school positions, special area teachers, and student safety assistants have been part of our investments in Team BCPS. These investments have been made possible because of the support of the Board of Education, the support of our county executives, as well as our county council. When times were plenty and we were able to increase compensation and provide enhancements, we did exactly that. The middle column shows the direct investments that we have made in all of our employees. Everything from raises for every single employee in Team BCPS to being 2 years ahead of the blueprint mandated $60,000 starting salary for teachers, which brings us to near the top of the scale in the state of Maryland. National Board Certified Teacher incentives, several memorandums of understanding for our staff members, including caseload management, instructional leadership teams, particularly at our elementary schools, to create the infrastructure needed for student progress, classroom coverage, secondary extra class period, and increase in hourly wages for contractual employees, as well as our bus drivers and attendant assistants. The total amount of that investment has been $104.1 million in additional compensation and enhancements. And as I mentioned earlier, we have had 11 new addition, renovation, or replacement capital projects. And as of January 8th, the amount of money that has been invested in infrastructure has been more than $569 million. Next slide, please. And so it is important for us to point to the investments that we have made in our students and schools, as well as their forward progress. We know what the charge was 3 short years ago. We have seen positive progress after year 1 and year 2. Year 3 is our opportunity to either solidify our position as forward moving as a school system and truly reversing that trajectory, or an opportunity for regression. It is our goal to make sure that we are moving forward. And so we do not want to have anything that distracts our teachers and staff from the work ahead of us and the students that are in the classrooms. And so this budget that I am proposing this evening for your review and consideration and deliberation over the next several weeks is with that in mind. It is informed by the feedback of many people in Team BCPS. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And so it is very important that we face our fiscal realities. We have a clear plan for how to address the challenges that we see ahead of us, and also to respond to the feedback that we have received across the last several months. Before we begin with that, we just want to make sure that there is clarity around the budget. The budget includes 6 funds. Most of our conversation over the last several months has been specific to the operating budget, which includes the general fund, which is all of our system operations. So all salary, wages, and benefits, and all of the day-to-day spending for the school system is a part of the operating budget. It also includes the special revenue fund and other components. The only other thing I'll point to your attention in the orange section is the capital projects fund. We have both the state capital budget and the county capital budget, which the Board of Education voted on this evening. Those are very separate processes to make sure that we deal with all of the construction needs of our facilities. The FY27 budget development process began several months ago. As a part of that process, we engage with many people. This slide depicts all of the groups that we have had an opportunity to hear directly from the advisories, PTA councils, principals in monthly meetings, central office leadership. We have sent out surveys to all stakeholders in the community, as well as a separate survey to our principals, to which I reported those findings. We had 5 different community conversations to hear directly from our community. The Board of Education has also had the opportunity over the last several months to hear operating budget presentations. They are listed on this slide, as I have done for the last 3 years. We have also had 2x2 small group meetings. Those were held in December. And this is an opportunity for our Board of Education members to ask me any direct questions that they have about the budget. Also, this year, knowing that we were in an especially fiscally challenging time, making sure that I was hearing any and all considerations for reductions in the budget, areas to inspect for necessary changes were a part of those meetings. We also held the FY27 budget overview presentation, I believe, in December as a part of the budget development process to make sure that everyone had access to as much information as possible and everyone was able to weigh in on what their priorities were. As a part of those discussions, the responses came back and they were clear to the survey as well as individual face-to-face meeting. Our families, our staff members told us that there was concern over providing support to struggling students. We also heard that there was support for keeping class sizes as small as possible. But what we heard the loudest from all stakeholders across the system was to prioritize compensation. That prioritizing the full compensation package was extremely important to members of Team BCPS. And so this proposed budget does just that. Next slide, please. We have shared the budgeting elements that we have used. On one side of this slide, it depicts research that Georgetown University, their Edunomics lab, has been sharing for the last few years, particularly with the ending of ESSER funds for school systems to consider to make reductions in their budget, as that was a fiscal reality across the United States. What you see that's unique to BCPS on these slides, you see the check marks for every area that we have implemented as a school system. Next to that, you have specific measures that we have taken in Team BCPS. I want to remind everyone that we are in a 3rd year of a central office hiring freeze. We have lifted our freeze temporarily in the summers for a short period of time to staff. The only other exception is when a position comes up if a chief from a division believes that it is mission critical, they are able to apply for an exception. We do not automatically, have not automatically, will not automatically fill positions that become open, whether they are for retirements, for promotions, or for resignation of staff members as part of our fiduciary responsibility. Contract review. For the first time this year, we reverse sorted all of our contracts that we had in Team BCPS from the most expensive contract to the smallest contract that we had. And what we were looking for as a cabinet, what chiefs went back and looked for in their teams, was an opportunity to either renegotiate contracts for a reduced price, to reduce amounts of goods that we procured if we were procuring a certain amount of an item, or to eliminate contracts in their entirety. And in a few slides, I will share some of the results of that. Zero-based budgeting, this is our 3rd year in a row of implementing zero-based budgeting, where we evaluate all expenditures. We require evidence of actual either expenditures or escalations that are in contracts. We do not automatically provide for all divisions the same amount of budgetary allocation that they received the previous year. We have no new initiatives in this budget unless mandated, and we also took extreme scrutiny around our new request, and you will see the results of that shortly as well. We also engage in a position analysis this time with an external source. For the last few years, as you know, we have made position reductions in Team BCPS. We have normed with our other neighboring districts. We wanted, because we had such a heavy lift in front of us, we wanted to have national comparison and wanted to benchmark with a partner that deals with budget benchmarking, and I'll share that data shortly. We reviewed all of our master schedules to make informed decisions based on courses where students were currently enrolled to ensure that our recommendations were aligned to our student needs. And we looked at all of our formulas that are public facing, ensuring that what we had as a formula was what we had implemented in our schools, and additional grant offset opportunities. Were there opportunities in federal funding for us to move additional positions from our operating budget to our grants? Next slide, please. Over the last 2 fiscal years, we have reduced the operating budget internally by $169 million. This includes a reduction in central office supervisory positions. One of the pieces of feedback that we heard from our community members was around the size of our central office. We examined that feedback. We reviewed our positions, we looked for efficiency and made those changes. I also want to note for our community members that part of these $169 million worth of reductions really focus on central offices. Large portion of our reductions were in the central offices over the last 2 years. We also last year were able to not make any changes with our staffing allocation formulas as we looked school by school of all of our formulas to make sure that we were in alignment. The first year we eliminated vacant positions that for years we had on our books, we were budgeting for, but they remained open. And we made reductions in built-ins, everything from reducing travel, reducing cell phone stipends, reducing supplies, and et cetera, were part of the work that we engaged in for the last 2 years. This is important to note because now we have come to a portion when we have the 3rd year of reductions where these opportunities are no longer available in the budget. And so they require us to make difficult decisions in order to honor the feedback that we have received from our stakeholders about the priorities for FY27. Next slide, please. Also want to make sure that we highlight where the funding comes from. BCPS is not revenue generating. We receive all of our funding from the local, state, and federal government, a small portion from other. You will see on the pie chart that the majority of our funding comes from the local government, followed by the state, as well as a smaller portion from the federal government. We have heard comments about how much money Baltimore County Public Schools receives for the budget. We receive a generous budget. We want to reiterate that maintenance of effort is the law. Our budget is likely the 3rd largest budget in the state of Maryland, as we are the 3rd largest school system in the state of Maryland. We are grateful to be in a county where our local partners have funded us above maintenance of effort, meaning above what is required. Last year, our funding was 3.5% above what was required. And so out of the funding that we received, last year we received approximately $30 million additional dollars above what was required, but the bulk of funding that we received was required based on the per pupil appropriation, so the number of students that we have in our schools and the funding from the year before. Our funding target this year from our county executive is 2% above what we received last year. If we want to compare that to maintenance of effort, that is the equivalent to 3% above maintenance of effort. As I stated, we do not generate our own funding. All of our funding comes with strings attached. All of our expenditures must be accounted for, whether these are expenditures at the central office level or at the schoolhouse level. You will note, as happened this evening, part of what happens in many Board of Education meetings are contracts. As a part of those contracts that are listed on board docs, there are budget appropriation limits, there are terms to the budget and specific vendors. Those terms apply to all schools and all offices. We have individual spending transaction limits, and we have reporting and external auditing requirements in Team BCPS for all of our funding. Next slide, please. Many factors have changed since January 2025. As we have shared, this is a challenging fiscal climate. Factors at the federal level has changed. BCPS, we are watching with you at the same time about the changes at the U.S. Department of Education and what the impact might be on us directly as a school system. This is important to us because we have more than 1,100 positions that are funded by grant funds. The future of this funding source is unknown. However, we are pleased that federal funding is appropriated 1 year in advance of when we plan to use those funds. At the state level, the structural deficit has increased. I believe the most recent number is about a $5 billion structural deficit. While school system funds are in a protected trust known as the blueprint, the concern that we advocate for is the budgets moving forward that stretch out the funding. The only way that that is able to be stretched out is by providing less than anticipated annually to the school systems. And so last year, we advocated in Annapolis for that not to happen. It was a good year for school systems last year at the state level. The governor's budget has not yet been shared for this year. However, we do know of one risk that I will share shortly, and we plan to be in Annapolis. Again, I invite any and all members who want to advocate on behalf of Team BCPS to join me, as I will be there often advocating on behalf of our 108,000 students. And at the local level, what we have to appreciate is that they receive their funding from the federal and the state level. And so a reduction at those levels also impact them. And so I am grateful that our county executive, not knowing what will come out of this legislative session, which I believe begins tomorrow, has committed to Team BCPS an above maintenance of effort budget. What she has committed to is the equivalent of $29.73 million above what is required for the school system based on our enrollment in our formulas. Next slide, please. And so it's important that we take a look at student enrollment. As you are aware of, as we have shared this previously, enrollment has not bounced back since COVID. This is the trend in the state of Maryland, and Baltimore County Public Schools is no different. We have had an opportunity to examine some of the reasons for the decline in enrollment. What we have learned is over the last 10 years, particularly in Baltimore County, or specifically in Baltimore County, and there are some data to support this. There is a lower birth rate overall. over the last 10 years, which has an impact on the number of school-age children that are available to come to our public schools. There has been an increase in homeschooling since the pandemic, although this last year we were successful in attracting more homeschooling families back to our online programs in BCPS. We have noted for this last year the immigration policy has had an impact on our multilingual learners and their attendance in school. And so these are some of the reasons. And at the same time, as you know, wages and benefits are increasing. And I bring this to your attention because all of our funding sources at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level, they are tied directly to enrollment. So based on the number of students that you have attending, whatever the formula is, it is multiplied by the number of students. And so when you have fewer students attending, there are fewer funds coming into the school system. If we take a closer look, next slide please, at student enrollment, we will share some data that is specific to what we are anticipating for FY27. Important to note on this slide, it includes not only the wages, but the benefits as well. So for FY27, we are anticipating $46 million worth of additional revenue for Team BCPS. Some of that is at risk, which I will share in the upcoming slide. And it is also important to share that under any funding scenario that we had planned for Team BCPS, all members of Team BCPS were to receive a raise. The second half of the year 2 compensation was built into any and all projections that we had. That amount is $28.1 million. So $28.1 million of the $46 million increase was something that we planned for. $60 million is the cost of additional compensation for the year 3 of the compensation package. When you add the benefits, it increases to $64.9 million. So right here on this slide, we can see the math problem that the budget poses for us in Team BCPS. Right there, just in compensation, is a $47 million gap. This does not include increased costs for fuel, for contracts, and et cetera. This is just for compensation. Next slide, please. As I stated before, there is a risk of the full state funding that we are aware of. Prior to COVID, you will recall that school systems, compensatory education, or what we used to call farms, specifically we are speaking about economically disadvantaged students. That number was determined based on farms or SNAP certification. There is a potential risk to move away from the hold harmless that we have been operating under to going back to direct certification using forms or SNAP benefits. As I shared with you, everything that we do is based on enrollment. So based on the number of students that attend Baltimore County Public Schools, there is a potential loss of $15.45 million. We have already started working on this. In November, when this information came to us, State Association of Superintendents, we all came together. The executive team, of which I am president-elect, we wrote a letter to the governor requesting 2 things that are depicted on this slide: an overall hold harmless for FY27, so we do not have this negative impact on our school system budgets, and a provision that would ensure that no school system receives less compensatory funding. In other words, less funding for economically disadvantaged students than was provided in this current fiscal year. as well as a continuation of Hold Harmless for community eligibility programs, of which we are a part of that. As you know, we provide free meals, breakfast, and lunch to all of our students. This is the third year in a row, and we do not want anything that would jeopardize our students having access to meals and reintroducing food insecurity in our schools. Next slide, please. And so one of the questions that we wanted to answer very clearly and very plainly for all members of our internal community and all members of the external community is about BCPS spending and the amount of funds that we receive. Sometimes in isolation, hearing the size of the budget, people ask the question, well, where is the money going? The purpose of this graphic is to answer that question. 82 cents of every dollar of our $2.7 billion goes to employees in Baltimore County Public Schools. And while sometimes it is stated, if only you do X, you will be able to close the budget gap, we want to make sure that people know that that is not correct. 82 cents, what you see in dark green, shows you the percentage that goes to different members of Team BCPS. So it is proportional. And so comments about non-represented staff are part of the 1 penny that also include contractual employees. The largest portion of our budget, and rightfully so, goes to TABCO represented employees. That is followed by AFSCME represented employees, ESPBC, followed by CASE, OPE, and then all others. What's important to note is 18 cents is what else is used to operate the entire school system. When I say operate the school system, I mean all of the lights, the light bulbs, the light bills, everything that you can think of, all of our rental agreements, our buses, paying for non-public placements, supplies, it is 18 cents. And so no matter how much work we do around the edges to trim, cut, reduce, find efficiencies for the 18 cents, at the end of the day, 18 cents is still 18 cents, and everything has a cost. Next slide, please. So as I alluded to earlier, we engage in a staffing analysis to ensure that there were no blind spots that we had missed either internally or with making comparisons to other school systems in Maryland. We partnered with Education Resource Strategies. They have been working for more than 2 decades with schools, districts, and state leaders, more than 30 systems focused on budgets, focused on how to shift resources and opportunities to ensure that staffing is aligned to create budget efficiencies while still meeting the needs of the students. Over the next few slides, I will share some of the findings. So this first slide depicts leadership and central office management positions. You will note for each one of the slides, there is Baltimore County and then a comparison to the median. While they have worked with well over 30 districts, they identified the 8 districts that had, the 8 school systems that had demographics that were closely aligned to Baltimore County Public Schools and identified the median. What you see here is our percent of overall staff and leadership and management is leaner, less than the median in Baltimore County Public Schools. When you take a closer look at the adjusted leadership and management and you're looking at specific position areas, executive directors, area officers, coordinators, managers, etc., you will also note that our positions are much less than the median of the comparison districts. Next slide, please. When we look at instructional ratios, this is what's happening inside of our school buildings and special education positions. The first graphs in the goldenrod and eggplant, those are the instructional ratios. We first have teachers only when we're comparing all teachers to our student population, and then what you have in purple are teachers and what they are terming teacher assistants. TAs include all of our paraprofessionals, any classroom assistants, as well as paraeducators. Baltimore County, our instructional ratio of students to all teachers and our instructional ratio of teachers and TAs is higher than the median. If we take a look at special education teachers, so only special education teachers assigned to our special education students, which that staffing is separate and different from our general education students, you will note that our staffing, again, is higher than the median. They have identified the implied number of FTEs higher than the median, where we have well over 100 positions higher than the median. This is pointing to that our, in these two areas, that Baltimore County Public Schools is well-resourced. And the final slide from the staffing analysis is around our student support services positions. How are we supporting our students outside of the classroom? So the first area is around pupil services and enrichment. That includes supervisors in this area, coordinators, managers, social workers, guidance counselors that service our students. You will note that BCPS is right at the median with 3.6. But what I want to call your attention to is the green and the dark blue. While we are at 3.6 and aligned with the median by overall positions, we have fewer middle management positions, which are highlighted in green, and more counselor positions, which provide direct services to our students. To take a closer look at counselors, you will note the last bar graph, the median, while the ASCA recommendation is 250 to 1, Baltimore County Public Schools is continuing to make headway and very close to that recommendation. We are at 269. We are lower than the median in terms of the number of counselors that we have provided for our students over time. I have shared highlights from this report as part of what is posted on Budget 101. The report for Baltimore County Public Schools will be posted there along with the comparison of the 8 other districts that will be posted this week. Next slide, please. And so we have made reductions. This slide speaks to our reductions in built-in costs. Built-in costs are not optional. These are our fixed obligation. Everything from transportation to textbooks, technology license, telecommunication, paying insurance, and facilities maintenance is a part of this. What's highlighted for you in bold are the areas where we are reducing our built-in costs. Those are diesel and unleaded fuel, telecommunications, facilities maintenance, devices and software license fees, reduced workforce development carryover, and IT contract services and vehicle parts. Our total reductions in built-in costs is $4.07 million. And this is at a time where costs are rising. Next slide, please. As I shared, we reviewed all of our contracts, and some of this work is ongoing as we are working directly with vendors to renegotiate. This slide captures negotiations that have continued opportunities to avoid different costs. You'll see here assessments from research, accountability, and assessment, facilities, transportation, information technology, and curriculum and instruction. Reduce costs from the price of costs for assessments, our facilities, support services, cost avoidance, and on Budget 101, we will have posted those specific contracts that have allowed us for FY26 and moving forward to avoid this tremendous cost. Elimination of duplicate GPS, our ability to reduce our UKG license, our ability to align our Microsoft license to positions that people have across our system. The board approved pause on IB in elementary and middle, which has yielded forward progress for those students. That pause also comes with a savings, and the continued use of structured literacy as part of our HMH contract. That is separate from our costs that we have in our budget for contractual personnel. Across our budget for years, we have had contractual personnel either work for a certain period of time over the school year to address needs in departments and divisions or work throughout the year. The team has gone in and made reductions in excess of $8.6 million in this area. Reductions in new spending. So typically, there is new spending that must be added to the budget based on the needs of the school system. This slide shows for you the historical BCPS new spending for the years of 2021 and 2022. The amounts in the operating budget were lower than before, and that is because we were receiving ESSER funding. Part of that ESSER funding went specifically to salaries, wages, contracted services, and benefits. The numbers that you see on these line items for 2021, 2022, they don't reflect all of the ESSER all of the ESSER funding that we have received. They only reflect the additional ESSER funding that we used for wages and benefits in those 2 fiscal years. In 2025, we had $69.7 or $69.8 million of additional new spending. Last year, we reduced that amount dramatically to $24.4 million, and this year we are moving forward. I am proposing a budget that reduces that amount by 73.6% to $6.4 million. Next slide, please. Even with all of the reductions that I have detailed for you, that is not enough. I recall your attention to the enrollment and our enrollment, the gap between our revenue and the costs for compensation, and our commitment to fully fund both year 3 of the compensation package in addition to the second half of year 2. And so this slide details the additional reductions. Net position reductions. We have, this number includes 594.4 for a total of $58.9 million. It includes 111.5 school-based positions tied to enrollment. This is a number that you will see in our operating budget annually. It is always tied to the September 30th enrollment and tied to the funding that we receive from our sources. In addition to that, 324.8 position tied to a change in staffing allocation formula. On this slide, you will see the proposal to have no change to our youngest learners, pre-K and kindergarten at 22, but moving grades 1 through 12 to 25 to actualize those savings. It's important to note at this time, in our master agreements, we have no layoffs and no furloughs. These reductions can be actualized, the majority of them through annual attrition. Annually, we hire hundreds of teachers into Baltimore County public schools. What this means is that we would hire fewer teachers in fiscal year 2027. We also have 36 additional central office positions, 40 assistant principal positions over the formula, 23.3 staff development positions, 12.3 secondary reading positions based on the schedules and the actual sections that our students are in, what their data calls for that they need. 5.2 reduction in online learning programs, and an additional $449,782 in contractual employee services. We have met with our directors of Title I and community schools to review opportunities to offset positions from the operating budget to the grants. This has yielded in a reduction of 41.6 positions, totaling $5.2 million. It includes PPWs, counselors, reading specialists, and staff development positions. Additional IT reductions for $2.75 million, and reduction in summer school costs for $432,000. Also want to highlight for you the increased use of fund balance. Last year, we had some conversation about our use of fund balance. If you will recall, in the FY26 budget, we began with proposing $18 million to be used from the fund balance. We increased to $30 million of the fund balance to fund additional compensation for our staff members. After our final negotiated agreements, we moved to $37.8 million of use of our fund balance. This FY27 budget proposes that we increase even more to $50 million of fund balance use for the upcoming year. It's important to note that when you look at the fund balance, you will see the cushion that is necessary from the county recommendation for emergencies and contingencies, and you will see, I believe it's another $20 million above that. I want to call your attention to a few slides ago and the state funding risks that we have of 14 more in excess of, $15 million. What it means if we do not ensure that we have proper fund balance available and we are not successful in our advocacy in Annapolis, is that we would be looking for $15 million, and I believe that's the correct number, of additional reductions to the budget. And so I just want to highlight that for everyone, the need that we are indeed increasing the use of fund balance to try to mitigate and offset some of the reductions that we have to make internally, and the need for us to be fiscally responsible and ensure that there are funds remaining in the fund balance in case we receive some information from this legislative session in Annapolis. Next slide. Our new spending, as I shared, is minimal. We are moving from $24.4 million to $6.4 million. What is on this slide is what is absolutely necessary. You will see $3.46 million for our 2 charter schools that are coming online as is required, and speech and language pathologists. We have invested in reducing the caseload. You'll see that amount here, the cost needed to continue that, and special education, 9 special education paraeducators and 11 special education teachers for a total of 20 staff members to support our SCLS, our CLS, and our continuum of service programs in our schools to directly meet the needs of our students. That is a total of an additional spending of $5.23 million in academic achievement. In the area of infrastructure, the only things that are here are required. You'll notice facilities management, the 12 building service workers that are needed for the additional square footage in our new project. So you'll note Dundalk, Solars Point High School, Lansdowne High School, and Deer Park Elementary School. The square footage has requirements on staffing to maintain that square footage. You'll also note where I see a typo where you see the FTE and it says 20 under research accountability and assessment. Please let the record reflect that is false. It is 0 in that line, and what is uploaded will be corrected. But what we are requesting is $55,000 for a contractual transcripts office person to respond to all of the transcript requests for the school system, and data analytics office, which I believe is $110,000 or $55,000, pardon me, $55,000 for that amount. So that correction will be made for the record. In safety and climate, I wanted to share, while we have no new expenditures, I did want to respond to our community. As you know, one of the things that we did was put out a survey directly to the community regarding the continued use of OmniAlert in our schools, and we had a separate one-question survey that went directly to our principals about the continued use of OmniAlert in our schools. It was very important for us that we heard directly from principals because, as you know, if there were any emergency, they are indeed the first responders in a school. What we heard from our communities, more than 2,700 responses, more than 75% of the members of the community said that they supported continued funding of OmniAlert in schools. When we looked at the data from our principals, 8 out of every 10 principals, 80% of our principals requested the continued funding of OmniAlert in schools, and so wanted to make sure that we closed the loop on that. Next slide, please. This slide details the compensation costs while I gave an overview in reference to enrollment. This slide, the first column represents our unions. We also have non-represented here. The year 2, as I indicated, every budget scenario accounts for a raise for all employees. So what the cost of that is broken out by union is in the second column. The third column details the full year 3 compensation costs. These include the benefits that we are required to pay, and so you see the total cost represented both in table form as well as the pie chart. Next slide, please. And so we'll move into the financial summary. So when we look at the general fund revenue, the local proposed budget is a little more than $1 billion here. You see the state is $992.5 million, and for other and federal funds, 67.9, totaling to almost $2.1 billion. Next slide. All funds revenue. This shows you the general funds, but as I shared before, the operating budget has 6 different funds, and so this slide captures those 6 funds. You'll see the general fund, special revenue, which are all of our grant funds for the operating budget subtotal. Listed below are the internal service funds, capital project funds, which is dramatically smaller as this is not a bond year for construction projects, debt service fund, and enterprise funds for a total of almost $2.5 billion for the fiscal year 2027 proposed budget. And so I want to close by highlighting what the FY27 proposed budget does. The FY27 proposed budget acknowledges and addresses the conversations that we've been having over the last 3 years, that we are in fiscally challenging times. We have challenges across levels. We have social challenges, political challenges, and fiscal challenges. We have done our due diligence to go out into our communities to hear about what is most important. Understanding and recognizing that we can't do everything, what is most important, and what we heard loud and clear was prioritizing recruitment and retention by honoring year 2 and year 3 of the compensation package for all members of Team BCPS was most important. And so this proposed budget includes both things in our budget, year 2 and year 3. Our balanced budget also acknowledges and extends gratitude to our county executive for, while not having what is going to be proposed in the governor's budget, still making a commitment to the school system of funding us above maintenance of effort, of funding us 2% increase above the funds that we received last year, which, as I shared previously, equates to $29.73 million of dollars. Not receiving this funding, jeopardizing not receiving above maintenance of effort, would call for additional reductions in an already challenging budget season. I think what we want to make sure that everyone understands is that we absolutely have a plan to address the priority that BCPS has laid before us. We are understanding that our students now more than ever need us to focus on them and what it is that they need in the classrooms. When everyone sees our budget book posted tomorrow, which it will be online tomorrow, our cards are on the table. Our books are open. There will be no questions about how we are making changes, what positions are being reduced. And so I think one of the questions we heard earlier was whether or not we have started reassignments. We have not started reassignments as this is a proposed budget for fiscal year 2027, as is my requirement in this position for the board's review, deliberation, and final decisions. But we also believe very strongly, as we have focused on climate and environment and safety, not only physical but social, emotional, that also is true for our employees in Team BCPS. And so while we post positions in a budget book, we owed it to our staff members for them not to come to work tomorrow to open a budget book and find out that their positions were proposed for reductions. And so there were courtesy conversations to let staff members know what, if something impacted them, that it was indeed in the budget book. We remain in a freeze. I want to start to close with the same way that I closed yesterday. We exist to educate students, all students. We acknowledge the tight fiscal times that we are in. Our responsibility at this time is to do everything that we possibly can to remain focused on the needs of our students. We have to spend the next few months delivering high quality instruction in all of our classes the very first time, because our 108,000 students, no longer are they 110,000, our 108,000 students are depending on each and every one of us. This is the opportunity for Baltimore County Public Schools, as judged by Maryland State Department of Education, as compared to 23 other districts in this school in the state of Maryland, as compared to other school systems across the nation. This is our opportunity to determine whether or not year 3 marks continued forward progress for our students who are counting on them, or are we going to regress because we are losing focus on what is happening in the classroom and we are not listening to the messages that people have communicated. I fully acknowledge that this is tough and this is difficult. If we had a choice, we would make different choices. But in tough fiscal times, in tight realities, we need to present a budget that addresses the information that we have received. We have received loud and clear that compensation must be a priority. We have received loud and clear from our largest funding partner that the commitment that can be made is 2% above last year. I believe that part of my responsibility in representing Team BCPS is to respect the message from our funding partners, and that is what this proposal brings forward. I am open for any and all additional funding sources. I absolutely have a plan for ways that I would be restoring positions in the budget if those funds come to fruition. I will be right back in Annapolis, the same place I was last year, on countless visits, advocating for our students who are counting on us. I invite any and all members of Team BCPS, the public at large, all of our esteemed board members, and et cetera. If you would love to join me in Baltimore County in moving to Annapolis on behalf of our students, please feel free to come and advocate on our students. And so with that, we are here for the students. We are committed to continuing our work throughout the rest of the year, and I look forward to the open conversations around the fiscal realities and the FY 2027 proposed budget. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, Dr. Rogers, for that very detailed report. That was a lot of information for us to digest, a lot of information for you to present. You obviously know this information because I'm sitting next to you and didn't see any notes, but it was all coming out. So thank you. For our public, there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, January 20th, 2026, in person in this room. So sign up for speaker registration was open this morning online, and it will close at 3 p.m. on Monday, January 19th, 2026. A waiting list will also be available 30 minutes prior to the start of the meeting in person. Again, that's next Tuesday, January 20th, our public hearing on the proposed budget. Board members, that was a lot of information to digest, so please submit any questions that you may have on this proposed operating budget to Dr. Rogers by Wednesday. Whoops. We're going to submit questions and come back. It's not a budget question? Okay. Can I finish this? Okay. Right. Submit any questions you have about the information provided. And again, the budget book will be online to Dr. Rogers by Wednesday, January 21st, so that she can be prepared for discussion at our January 27th work session on the budget. Okay, Ms. Domanowski?
It's more of a, in alignment with the calendar, we were supposed to get the proposed budget book today. I was just wondering what the reason was for delaying until tomorrow.
So what we shared several months ago is that we are going to provide printed copies of the online budget book for anyone who requested. I believe Ms. Gover took a list of names, or she will take a list of names of anyone who wants a printed copy, and she'll share the process that she's using to get them to you.
Why wait till tomorrow to post the online version then? So.
That's what we have done annually.
Yes, but according to the calendar, we're supposed to receive it today. The budget calendar on our website. And I didn't get an email about a printed one. I don't know if anybody else did.
Yes, you received that several months ago, I believe in August, where we shared that we would be printing them on the night of the budget meeting. And this was to avoid any confusion about the online book versus the hard copy book, because the budget team works until the 24th hour, making sure that they're reviewing all funding as they receive new and updated information from state and other offices. They make sure that those numbers are correct. And so that was provided, I believe, late August to all Board of Education members, that moving forward, Ms. Gover would be printing online versions to ensure that there was no difference between the hard copies and the online version of the book, as previously, I believe it was a 2-week window in advance when those books were printed.
So just one last follow-up. So is it finished?
The books?
Is the budget book finished? Like, is it ready to be
Posted.
I'm just curious as to why we're not getting, even an online version, why wouldn't, since we're switching, we're not getting a printed one unless we request one, why we're not posting it now online so we can start looking at it?
She will post it first thing in the morning. As far as the request for written format, can we still make that? I don't recall. Okay. If you want a printed one, please let her know ASAP so that she can get them to us. Go ahead. Yeah, well, before we leave. Yeah. Or she can send you an email, whatever she feels is best. However you like to tell it. You can email her right this minute and say, I want it. You can let her know before you walk out. Go ahead.
How will we get it in time to submit questions?
Can we have those delivered as we do the hearing? Right. She will have them delivered to your home.
I think our questions are due.
Well, we can extend.
Okay. Thank you.
The deadline for the questions from Wednesday. I'll let you know when the deadline for the questions is. Was that all? There was hands up over here too before. Did that answer all your questions?
Mine was answered. I must have overlooked the August email. I don't remember seeing that email, so that answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Let me make sure online. Okay. I'm not sure. Ms. Gover will either resend it or we don't even need the email. We just need you to tell her, yes, I'd like a printed. How many people would like a printed copy of the book? Okay, we will assume, it's okay. Okay, we will assume that, or you can find out from Dr. Savoy and Ms. Harvey, if they too would like it, and Ms. Frempong. Is that everybody? Yep. Okay. Oh, that was Ms. Pumphrey. Okay, let me go on to the next thing. All right. The next item, and the last item, is board member comments and any agenda setting items. So if you have a comment or an agenda setting item, please raise your hand. You can always send me your items. Ms. Stileski.
Thank you. This is a second request for a presentation on elementary science.
Okay. Just an overview of elementary science? So we had one, I thought.
Right, and I know that there was a lot of follow-up information that the public was asking for in terms of learning time and how many minutes per day were spent with science and how instruction was impacted if certain schools focused more on ELA and math.
You mean currently how it's being delivered?
So just sort of a follow-up presentation regarding that impact. Thank you.
Ms. Hen?
Thank you. I have two agenda requests. One is a deep dive presentation on the staffing benchmarking report that we heard about tonight. I'd like to request that board members get copies, or I heard Dr. Rogers say that the report will be shared publicly online. If that could be made available at least 2 weeks prior to the presentation so that board members can submit questions in advance. And yes, so we can submit questions in advance for that. My second request is also data intensive, but I'd like to request historic attrition data that and trend analysis information, as well as the fiscal impact on instructional salaries and the impact on fund balance and the use of that fund balance as a result of that attrition and how that's been reallocated.
Okay.
All that.
Yes, or you can also send, did you get that, Ms. Gover? Did you get Ms. Hen's requests? Okay.
Thank you.
I thought I saw another. Did I see any more hands? Ms. Pumphrey?
I mentioned this already to the LGR committee, but I would like to discuss the possibility of the board supporting the superintendent's, what she talked about on the slideshow this evening, the 24 school system request to the governor, and requesting that we not switch from the hold harmless to direct certification using SNAP and forms.
Okay. And that's the request for the legislative and governmental group to add that as
Well, I would
priorities.
like it to be a full board discussion,
Okay.
full board request, but I believe the process would be to run it through LGR first.
Okay. Okay, let me check Teams. Okay, I don't see anyone's hands up. Ms. Hen?
To follow up on Ms. Pumphrey's request, I'd like the full board to discuss TABCO's legislative priorities in full, and that may also need to be initiated in LGR, but for
Okay.
then it to come to the full board.
Others? Okay, let me get back to board docs. The last item on the agenda is announcements. Another reminder that the board's public hearing on the superintendent's proposed FY 2027 operating budget will be in person on Tuesday, January 20th, 2026, beginning at 6:30. Online sign-up opens January 13th, 2026. The board's next meeting will be held on Tuesday, January 27th at 6:30 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, and the meeting is now adjourned.